Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the space for powerhouse women ready to step into their next level of abundance, purpose, and personal freedom. I'm Dr. Corey Winn, a high performance coach, doctor of physical therapy, philanthropist, and business consultant. I help ambitious women align with their highest calling, expand their wealth and impact, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. If you're a high achieving woman who's built success yet finds yourself craving more alignment, more purpose, more ease, you're in the right place. Here, we bridge the gap between ambition and fulfillment. Through transformative conversations and proven strategies, you'll gain the courage to step into the fullest expression of you. Build a powerhouse business that aligns with your expertise and divine gifts, and lead your life, both personally and professionally, with unshakable confidence, worthiness, and compassion. This is about expansion, legacy, and owning your power unapologetically. You already have everything inside of you to create a life of unlimited possibility. It's time to unlock it. Welcome to your next level. Let's dive in. I am so excited about today's guest. This is a conversation for every woman who's ever had a life-changing moment causing their life to come to a screeching halt and wondered if she ever would make her way back. My guest, Kelly Tuttle, knows what it means to rebuild when everything shatters. A retired neurology nurse practitioner, author of After the Crash, How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury, and creator of the Road to Recovery program, Kelly transformed her own traumatic brain injury into a mission to guide others toward healing, hope, and wholeness. Her story isn't just about recovery, it's about rediscovering who you are when the life you know no longer fits you. This conversation personally is so important to me as a physical therapist who's worked with patients with neurological diseases my entire career. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So obviously that's a lot. We're all on our seats wanting to hear exactly what happened. So let's start with your journey. How did you get where you are today?
Well, my story begins with the thunderous clap of metal and the shattering of glass, and people coming out of their houses to see what's going on, and traffic was stopped. Another car had pulled out in front of me while I was driving home from work, and I ended up T-boning them. And it was pretty bad wreck, but I thought I could shake it off. And I even went to work the next day.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah. And my colleagues who were RNs and nurse practitioners noticed that there was an issue. I had speech difficulty. And they implored upon me to see my general practitioner the next day, which I did. And I was diagnosed with a concussion and taken off work for 2 weeks and thought that was it. I'd get better and get back to life.
Mhm.
So I pushed to get back to life, working full time, mom of small children, and other obligations. And despite headaches and dizziness and irritability, fatigue, I just kept pushing myself because I figured, well, 2 weeks I should be better, right?
What all of us high achieving women do. I should just be better. I'm fine.
Exactly. Until one day I fell asleep at the wheel on the way home from work, and the car bouncing off the road woke me up just in time before I slammed into a tree.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so this is how well my concussed brain was working. Instead of letting my doctor know, I decided I would just take a nap on the side of the road
Yep. Sounds
between
about
work and
right.
home. And I don't recommend that to anybody or your listeners. So don't do what Kelly did. And I fortunately had lunch shortly thereafter with, at the time, I was a cardiology nurse practitioner, and I had lunch with a colleague who was a neurology nurse practitioner. And so she was really curious about my recovery, and she asked, how are things going? And I say, blah, 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 fell asleep at the wheel. But that's okay. I'm just taking a nap in between. And she goes, no, that is not okay. and pushed me to see a physical medicine rehab doctor and get a brain scan, which I hadn't seen a specialist or had any CT or an MRI at the time. And so a lot of hoop jumping, finally got to the specialist, and the physical medicine and rehab doctor recognized right away there was a problem,
Hmm.
took me off work for 3 months, and I was able to get onto the right road of recovery. When it came to 2 weeks to return back to work, I was freaking out. I was like, what does my brain need to support it to function well while I'm at work? Right.
Right. Right.
And I still had the headaches and the dizziness and memory issues. But despite that, I pushed to try to find strategies and tools I could use at work. And I felt that it was hard. I struggled. I was reading my old online sites, my concussion books, my therapist handouts. And I just thought that I would never want anybody to go through that.
Hmm.
And so when I decided to write my book, I decided that it would have those tools that I learned that work for me, really quick, to the point, easy to read book. And then I made it on Audible because I had difficulty reading for years
Hmm.
after my brain injury. And so I made it on Audible so that people who were in that same boat could it was accessible to them too. And
Yeah.
it's just my life has bloomed from the book.
Well, and it's so interesting that you say, you said something like, my brain wasn't working, so I thought I would just take a nap on the side of the road. And I mean, I've worked in inpatient rehab, I've worked in outpatient, and I can't tell our listeners how many people came in after having had a stroke and would say things like, well, yeah, my leg hasn't been working for probably the last week, but I just thought it would get better. And I think there's something to be said here and now about not only advocating for yourself if you can, but having family members advocate for you. Because when you've had a brain injury or you've had a stroke, your brain is not working properly. You're not thinking clearly. You are not making sense. So having someone else in your life go, no, that's not normal. Like your friend who is a neurology nurse practitioner. No, that's not okay. Let's move into this lane because concussions, brain injuries, strokes, any number of dementia, we don't think clearly and we need someone else to step in. Not that you need like a guardian ad litem or anything like that, but just an advocate to say, I don't think this is right. Let's go back to the doctor. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out.
Yes, definitely. And I think that there needs to be a change in how we handle people who have possibly a concussion.
Mhm.
When you do see someone who's had a fall or was in a car accident or was hit in the head during sports, that the doctors shouldn't say, okay, well, call me if things get worse or not better, when you're asking someone who may not have self-awareness.
Right, exactly.
And so I always, when I did become a neurology nurse practitioner, I created my own schedule of following up with people. And it was 2 weeks after, then it was 1 month out, then it was every 3 months for 6 months, then it was every 6 months for a year, just to make sure nothing popped up or festered that they didn't notice and was putting them at risk of losing their job, losing their relationships, you
Right.
know. Um, or developing financial issues from impulsivity, behavioral changes, things like that.
And really, from what I've seen in my patients and in neurology, you don't know what you don't know. You don't
Right.
know what's available, you don't know what can happen. And until, like you said, you wrote a book that's easy to read from a patient literacy standpoint. And for those who don't know what that means, that's like third grade level reading to understand what happened to you so that you're not bogged down with scientific terms to figure out, is there something still wrong with me? And that allows both your patients as well as their caregivers to say, something's still not right. Or, no, I think we're progressing in the right direction.
Yeah.
When you think about your recovery, you mentioned in some of the work that I was prepping for that your recovery was incredibly lonely. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it was the first 2 years was very dark and very lonely. And because I felt like I didn't have another friend or family member who had gone through a head injury. And when I listened to other brain injury survivors, they also say how alone they feel because they may not know people that have had a brain injury or that they should reach out to a support group,
Mhm.
whether that's virtual or in person. And you do spend a lot of time in your head after a brain injury, wondering what's going on because you don't want people to think that there's something wrong with you, that you can't take care of your children, or that you can't do your job. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of this like inner work that keeps you isolated. And then if you suffer from overstimulation from the environment, whether it's light sensitivity or sound sensitivity or difficulty tracking objects or moving people, then you're going to even become more isolated because you're going to not want to go out and be there out with people because it worsens your brain injury symptoms, increases a sense of anxiety and stress,
Mhm.
and then you're left exhausted the next 2 to 3 days up to a week
Right.
after, going out into the world.
Well, and I remember that was something that I always talked with my patients after they'd had a stroke about is you are going to be exhausted for longer than you think you should be. And normal activity that would never have made you exhausted before will make you exhausted. And it's not just the physical piece of getting up, getting dressed, taking a shower. It's the mental energy that is required to put one foot in front of the other that prior to this brain injury was automatic. Your brain didn't
Right.
have to think so hard to get these steps done. So I'm so glad that you talk about that level of loneliness and also self-awareness of allowing patients to give themselves grace. Like you, I'm sure, had to give yourself a lot of grace to maneuver in your world differently. And I personally haven't had a brain injury, but I did have an episode about almost 2 months ago now of transient global amnesia. And
Mm.
just stepping out of that space and being able to give myself grace when I didn't remember something, it was fearful at first. Like, was this something that I
Mhm.
would have remembered before? Do I not really remember it? And level setting expectations of, no, you're okay. You wouldn't have remembered this before. Um, but that's such a small piece and not even a true brain injury comparatively to what you went through. So, can you speak to kind of how you transitioned and how you kind of got out of that loneliness and how you help your patients move through that when they find themselves in the same position?
Yeah, so what I started to do was journal.
Mhm.
And at first I just journaled because I was pissed.
Yeah, exactly. And let's be super clear, that's a great awareness to have, but also a process that you need to have.
Yes. I was like so angry, because I couldn't do the things I wanted to do and I was missing out hanging with my friends and I think it was also a little bit of the injury, this anger, this frustration. And so then I started journaling and writing stuff down and I've continued even today. So I started journaling in the morning and then at night.
Mhm.
And with that came, I was able to monitor my progress, develop a self-awareness, get out of my head, away from negative Nancy and Bobby Bully,
Uh-huh.
and you know, uh, reevaluate those ruminating thoughts in my head and get in touch with my true passions and values. I had a personality change after my brain injury. I didn't know who I was anymore. And my journal helped me get in touch with my true values and discover the new person I was becoming. And so, yeah, that's like the biggest thing is was the journaling. And with the journaling, as you know, comes the mindfulness
Mhm.
and starting to practice the mindfulness, which I used to practice mindfulness through martial arts study,
Mhm.
but because of my head injury, I don't have good balance and I don't have the energy to train that intensely. So I had to learn how to do mindfulness while sitting. And I did see a counselor who helped me with that, and she got me started on adult coloring,
Mhm.
which is an excellent way to kind of start that practice of mindfulness. And when you start practicing mindfulness and you're journaling, then you're starting to practice gratitude, being thankful for the small, pleasant things in your life. And that really helped me get me out of my head and discovering the new me.
Well, and I hope that our listeners also hear that you gave yourself the time and the space to be still. And so many of us high achieving women, we go and go and go. I'm fine. I don't need that. And we don't ever stop. And some of us, like you, went through something significant that was very quick that said, no, you have to.
Hmm.
And there's no choice. And we're done here. Um, I don't want I didn't want you to go through that, but I don't want any of our listeners to have to go through that something that severe to be able to step back and be okay in the calm, be okay in the stillness, not having to push and grind and go all the time. So I hope that our listeners hear that too, not only mindfulness, but being still, meditation, journaling is incredibly important for you to then quantum leap in other areas of your life and move forward because you cannot run full speed ahead your whole life. Your body
No.
will give out. Um, let's see. Um, What has been the most rewarding thing that has come out of this injury and moving into the neurology nurse practitioner and your book and helping patients in this way? What can you speak to on that?
Well, two things which has been rewarding. One day when I was about a year or so out from the car accident, I realized that, hey, some of these deficits might be permanent, and how am I going to go forward?
Right.
And so I wrote on a piece of paper, I wrote a line down the middle, and I wrote all the things that I was passionate about and had goals and so forth on the right side of the paper before the car accident, and then on the left side, and on the right side of the paper I wrote what I gained from the car accident, and it was that opportunity to learn how to rest, to be kind to myself, more empathetic, more mindful of my life instead of being on the go,
Mm-hmm.
traveling, seeing friends, volunteering, more of a appreciating more of a slower pace of life, more simple life, and that has made a big difference. And then when I decided to work towards becoming a neurology nurse practitioner, it was really rewarding to be able to be an ambassador for my patients. So my patients had Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, so they had, impaired, mild impaired cognitive difficulties. And it was nice to be able to put words or medical terminology to their symptoms that they were struggling with,
Mm-hmm.
and pointing out the fact that it was due to the MS or the Parkinson's that they were having these issues. They just felt really heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to give them strategies and tools to kind of support their brain and validation in their symptoms and their need to honor getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night, to take breaks throughout the day, and to know, yeah, you only have so much energy in a day, you only have so many spoons,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of learning to live with that
Right.
and do the best you can.
I love that so much. So much of my career and outpatient was working with patients with Parkinson's disease, doing the LSVT big program. And allowing people to truly understand what's going on in their life, that this new diagnosis is not a death sentence, and that they can continue to live fulfilled lives for a long time with the appropriate adaptations, with the appropriate equipment, with the caregiver support, and the caregiver respite. I'm sure that in the process of all of this, you've had the opportunity to also really educate caregivers and how they can manage the potential personality changes that may come with Lewy body dementia or
Hmm.
with Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's. Um, or like you said earlier, the anger. I will never forget, I had a patient with Alexander's disease years and years ago. And he came in one day and there was another patient next to him with an amputation. And he said, it's so good for me to come here and recognize that my life is not as bad as I thought it was. And I said, I love that you have that compassion, and your life has changed drastically. Your life changed with your traumatic brain injury. Like there's also a time to grieve that, be
Hmm.
okay with grieving that, own the fact that it's different, and then learn how to continue on because this isn't a death sentence. And I don't know if you can speak a little bit to that, but a lot of my patients can find themselves in this very huge sense of depression and kind of ruminate in this space of my life is over. I have Parkinson's disease now, or I was diagnosed with MS. And that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah. So with the brain injury, you'll have changes in the chemistry. You'll have issues with impulsivity and behavioral issues and anxiety and depression.
Mhm.
And being able to tell people, hey, the reason why you're feeling this way is because your brain has been injured and it's trying to heal. And to heal, it takes a ton of energy.
Mhm.
And if you push it like you normally did, you're going to run out of that energy and it's not going to be able to do the things that you want it to do. Um, I think I answered that,
Yeah.
that question of yours.
Yeah. And it's just, I think it all comes back to grace and mindfulness and being patient, which for those of us high achieving women and many others out there, patience may not be the first go to for me personally. Um,
Hmm.
is, we want to just go and do all the time. I want to take a minute to talk about your book and
Okay.
where people can find it, what they can hope to gain from it.
So, my book is After the Crash: How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury. And you can find it on Amazon or probably at any of your favorite indie books. It's on Audible also. And you can find out more information about me at my website, kellytuttle.org.
Awesome. I know you mentioned earlier that you have it on Audible on purpose. Can you talk a little bit about the purpose behind it being on Audible?
Yeah, so when I was recovering, I always wanted to learn from other survivors. And there's a lot of books where survivors share their stories, their struggles, and so forth. But if it wasn't on Audible during my early recovery, I couldn't read it.
Mhm.
And I went from being able to read for hours down to only being able to read for 5 to 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would start to forget what I had read, or
Mhm.
I'd get headaches, or just be too tired. And since I love to read, I worked really, really hard to get back to reading. But anyway, that struggle led to me insisting I didn't care how much it cost to have my book on Audible because I really wanted it to be accessible to others who weren't able to read right after their recovery. And I didn't want people to feel alone, and I wanted them to know that there is hope of them getting better.
Mhm.
But if you're in that position of not being able to read, it's all about the baby steps. So it's 10 years after my brain injury, and I'm finally back to where I was before the brain injury in my reading. And how I did that was first I started, of course, listening to books. Then I started reading comic books
Oh, yeah.
because they're small. They
Hmm.
have the art that you can interpret, and the writing is not a lot,
Right.
like on a page or something. So it's just little pieces that, and you could take a break whenever you need to. Then I moved to poetry, which
Oh, okay.
helps with the concepts and the imagery and stuff like that. But again, the words are packed
Right.
in a block, and you get a sense of accomplishment when you finish the
Yes.
poetry, right? And then, so from there, that's when I started to then read books.
Hmm.
And I really focused on small books with large font for a long, long time. And I think because I'm older, I still like the large but that's how I bridged that reading love back into my life. And that's what it's all about when you have something that kind of devastates your life and shatters the pieces on the ground, is you don't look at the whole, um, all the shattered pieces at once. You just pick up one and use, take care of it. And then you add the second piece. And it's just baby steps and having kindness and patience with your recovery. I often remind patients that brains and nerves, like when you lose your movement in your arm or leg after a stroke, that can take months to years to heal
Hmm.
and recover. It's not like a broken bone, which takes 6 to 8 weeks. So,
Your
and
neurons
everybody's
definitely don't grow back as quickly as your bones or your muscles do.
exactly. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so then they start getting really worried and upset after, a couple months of therapy that they're never going to get better.
Right. I love that. Well, and I know you could probably speak to this more than me, but just for people who aren't as familiar with brain injury or neurological conditions, they don't always affect your cognition. But like you said, you had difficulty reading. This can come in the form of double vision, headaches while reading. It can be an issue with your eyes being able to be coordinated appropriately to be able to stay on a line on the page. Um, what else? Depth perception. I mean, so many things come with vision and equilibrium and your vestibular system that it's not necessarily that you cannot understand the material, but you may not be able to interpret in the same way that you did before, just like you with reading. So having our audience hear Audible, having other people read to you. I've had patients with double vision wear an eye patch until their eyes could adjust appropriately and be able to coordinate like they needed to. Or even putting, like a piece of paper on the line and moving it
Hmm.
each time. There's so many strategies that come to this. So I hope you hear from Kelly today that you don't need to give up either. If you love to read, there are ways to get back to it. She gave you the steps, and there's also a lot of accommodations, and various centers for independent living in your area may also be able to help, or occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, and even your ophthalmologist can give some ideas too. So,
And behavioral optometrists.
yes. Thank
A lot
you.
of people don't, yeah, know about that. And because I got diagnosed with binocular vision dysfunction.
Mhm.
And I did have so I saw that the behavioral optometrist for that, and then I saw a neurotherapist for I had difficulty tracking objects.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there is a lot just involved with vision, and that may take multiple specialists to see to get it treated.
Yes, and to get it recognized. Your balance issue could be a balance and equilibrium from your brain injury, from the balance centers of your brain, or it could be from your vision. So
Hmm.
being able to tease those apart, and from my space in the physical therapy world, to also help keep you from falling and hurting yourself in another way, during this
Right.
whole process. Um,
And the neck.
yes, yes. Um, One thing that you talk about, and my uncle talked about a lot, my uncle had a spinal cord injury when he was 19, was just being seen differently. Can you speak to that a little bit with both your personal situation and then things that you've seen in your patients?
Well, for me, my disability is invisible.
Mhm.
And so I have the choice to share it or not. And I actually hid my disability for 7 years from my employer.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And because I was worried that people would see me as not being able to do my job.
right.
And and that's a real thing. So I'm sorry, Corey, what was the
No, you're
question?
fine. So
Brain glitch.
I no, it's okay. I think there's also a bias assuming that if you have some sort of disability, physical or otherwise, that you can't do your job or that you are less capable. So that was where I was going with that. How have you helped advocate for yourself and advocate for your patients?
What I have done is I've educated them and myself about accommodations
Mhm.
and of course the compensatory strategies and tools that I got from my speech therapy and my physical therapy neurotherapist. And um, I often share that to my patients that you can go to um, askjan.org.
Okay.
And they are an organization that help HR services navigate accommodation requests from employees.
Mhm.
And they have a tab you can uh, disabilities A through Z. You click it, you can find brain injury or whatever, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and then they'll give you a list of accommodations.
Mhm.
And what I did was I took those accommodations and I didn't ask from my employer, but I tried to implement them at work to see if they would help me. And kind of that's kind of how I got my bucket of tools too. But I also, when my patients do want to ask for accommodations, I tell them, go there, tell me
Mhm.
what things will work for you, because you have to advocate what you think your brain needs to support it to perform at its best. Nobody else is going to know that
Right.
because they're not in your head. And number two, every brain injury is different,
Yes.
just like everyone's personality is different. Just because you and I had the same blow to the head, we're going to recover different. We're going to have different symptoms. We're going to need different accommodations.
Yes. Well,
And then I know if you wanted me to, I could go into asking for accommodations.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's
Okay.
great. I think people don't recognize that this is your right from the ADA. You know,
Yeah.
you can ask for accommodations at work and reasonable, I can't remember exact verbiage, but reasonable accommodations have to be met, period. That's
Hmm.
not something that you have to be shy about. So absolutely speak to that. I would love that.
Right. So I asked at a support group initially, should I report my disability at work? Hopefully, to get support. And I got it in a strong no. Because they had experienced employers not honoring accommodations and threats to their jobs.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the reasons why I hit it. So if you choose to share your disability with your employer, you need to really ask what's the goal
Mhm.
and how are your relationships with the managers or the HR people? Are you in a union? Because if you want to sit down and ask for accommodations, you should include your labor rep with you.
Yeah.
Um, but you really have to ask yourself, what's the goal? Like, are you gonna not be able to do your job well without this accommodation? Can you sneak the accommodation in without your employer, employees know, coworkers knowing? Um, because even though you do have the right, some employers will really make it hard. They'll slow the process. They will they can ask for multiple doctor's notes and examinations.
Mhm.
They could say, well, that's not an option. What is a different option? So when you do come, you want to make sure you have multiple options that you think would work for you.
Mhm.
And then they can later on retaliate by questioning the quality of your work. You're not keeping up. Um, so it's a really hard decision. And the way the environment is now, it's not very, the geopolitical environment right now that we're living in is not very supportive of the worker.
Right.
Um, so you just have to really think about it and your goal of getting that. But you're right, legally they are supposed to provide the reasonable accommodations, and the website Ask Jan will help you with that. And the
Mhm.
federal website, the EEOC, can help you with those questions, or your state uh, disability departments and stuff like that can help you too with those questions. So you'd want to become really familiar with that and be able to speak clearly to it. But if you're in a toxic environment, they just, you know, they might just be mean to you. It's terrible to say.
Well, and I think in the space that we're in with advocacy, I work really closely here in Colorado with one of the Centers for Independent Living, and it may take you changing jobs. I mean, really advocating for yourself and what you need and what you deserve is of utmost importance. And finding a place that lights your soul on fire is kind of the space where I come from, of not allowing yourself to settle for anything less. And I don't say that lightly either, though. I know that that can be a hard transition. That can be a big leap and be incredibly frightening for people. And know that it's your right. Um, and I did want to go back for just a second. I worked a long time, like I said, with patients with Parkinson's disease. And I wanted to just make a point to say, when you have somebody who is in your family or who you work with who's had a brain injury or has Parkinson's disease or any of the other progressive neurological diseases, their brains work differently. It may take them longer to process information or process questions that you've asked, various things. It doesn't mean they're not in there. It doesn't mean that they don't have an answer. It doesn't mean that they have dementia and have no idea what you said. They just need a little extra time to hear, understand, process the question, and then process an answer. So that was one of the things that I always worked with my students on, is slowing down and
Yeah.
pausing, giving
Yes.
time to allow the question or comment to land. And also, especially with my patients who are older adults, is there a hearing deficit on top of this information processing delay? Again, they're not dumb. They're not cognitively impaired in the sense that they don't have an answer or they're not in there. It just takes a little bit of time. So I just wanted to take a second to say that. Um, do you have anything else that you want to add? This conversation has been so valuable on so many levels, but I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you, how to follow you, if they're in your area, how to see you as a patient, all of those things.
Well, I'm retired, so I
Right, I
don't
totally
see.
forgot about that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So they won't be able to see me, but you can gain from my knowledge. Again from the book. If you want to get into journaling, but you're not sure how to do it, I designed a brain injury recovery journal, which you can find on Amazon, and it's called My Brain Injury Recovery Journal. And you could go to my website. I do have an online program to help people get back to work. And if you're able to read and you enjoy reading, I also write a Substack, The Mindful Return, where I share a lot of this information. If you're not able to read, I do have a YouTube channel, and it's Kelly Tuttle, Brain Loving Advocate, where I put the content in really short, brief videos, nothing longer than 10 minutes. that you can also learn from. And that's free. The Substack's free. The information on my online program's free. So yeah, take advantage of it.
I
Or,
love that.
or reach out to me. I'm happy to provide answers to questions I know.
I love that. Well, and I will make sure that all of these resources are in the show notes, all of the different ways to get in touch with Kelly, her books, her resources. So we'll make sure that we have that. But Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. It has been such a blessing to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking to physical therapists. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your next level is already within you. If you're feeling that pull for more clarity, more alignment, and more courage to step fully into who you're meant to be, this is your invitation to take the next step. Whether you're an entrepreneur ready to scale or a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the path forward starts with trusting your desires, owning your worth, and leading with your inner knowing. This is exactly what I offer. Private VIP coaching, and where I guide women inside the 10K Club and 50K Club through consulting with She Sells and Superhuman Selling to help you gain clarity, step into aligned action, and build a life and business that reflects your highest vision. If you're ready to explore what's next, let's have a conversation. Book a free call now at www.corywinn.com/free call. I can't wait to connect with you. Talk soon.